what doesn't get talked about a lot? The spoken word genre of music. And to be honest, it really isn't hard to believe, since its place in the world of music seems to be limited to coffee shops and open mic nights, if you'll excuse the stereotype. But whilst I cannot claim to be any sort of expert or have any in-depth knowledge of the genre, I do find myself fascinated with the way these poets can just ramble off with such detail and manage to create interesting mini-vignettes even on the most simple, almost everyday topics. Someone who's caught my attention over the last couple of years is Tempest, poet, rapper and playwright, whose 2014 album Everybody Down was an absolute delight to listen to. I caught the album a little into 2015 and was gutted because if I had listened to it earlier, it would have easily placed itself as one of the best albums of 2014. So upon learning that she had a new album on the horizon called Let Them Eat Chaos, I wouldn't let that same scenario play out, and thank God I haven't, because this is another great project from the Londoner. The concept of the album is a mini vignette detailing 7 people who are experiencing a lull in their lives and are in search of something that gives them a temporary release from these feelings of despondency. After the opening track, Picture a Vacuum, which sees our narrator honing in on Earth and all of its glory and its harshness, we transition into Lionmouth Door Knocker, which creates the image of the setting on where the album takes place, a block of flats situated in London. And from here on out, we're introduced to our characters. First, on Ketamine for breakfast, we're introduced to Gemma, a young woman who is currently a wreck of a person since her past life was consumed by drugs, alcoholism, poor diet, hanging around the wrong sort of people, and perhaps was involved in a life of prostitution. And despite her desire to move beyond what has made her who she is today, she still finds herself being drawn back into that lifestyle. Then we meet Esther on Europe is Lost, who's a carer who's just finished her double shift and is attempting to wind down before she goes to bed, but knows that she'll be unable to do so because her mind is constantly racked with thoughts of worldly occurrences and its impact on the world. Issues that range from war to destitution, famine to immigration, and today's self-obsessed me generation to the rise of extreme nationalism and the feelings of hatred that it creates. Next is single mother Alicia on the track We Die, where she's awakened by the dream she has of her husband who was stabbed and died before her eyes, documenting the anguish she experienced as a result, the loneliness, the crying, the lack of eating a proper diet, and despite wanting to find love again, she finds herself unable to do so, whether it's what's going on in her life personally or professionally, or because she hasn't been able to fully let go yet. Fourth is Pete on the song Whoops, whose behaviour in the past, along with dabbling with alcohol and the occasional drug spell, has seen him become destitute to the point where he's had to move out of his old flat and is now back living with his father. Then we meet Bradley on Pictures on a Screen, who despite having a good job, earning a good wage, and has the ability to not only own his own apartment, but also fill it with lavish goods and live rather frivolously, he feels that he's never had the sensation of what it means to feel alive, and fears that he's going to get himself stuck in a situation that one day, when he's of old age, he'll look back and regret that he never fully experienced life. Then there's Zoe on Perfect Coffee, who's currently in the process of moving out of her flat, motivated by the fact that her area isn't what she remembered it to be, and essentially has no joy in living in this area anymore, has become disillusioned by how extortionate living has become now, and that this place no longer feels like home. And then we meet our final character, Pius, on the track Grubby, who intentionally goes out of her way to seek a way to fill the feeling of sadness that's been present ever since she split up with her ex-girlfriend. And despite currently sharing her bed with some random woman, she pines for the person who made her feel whole, only to be crushed when she discovers that her ex is now seeing someone else, ultimately reaching the end of the story where all 7 individuals convene in the middle of the street during a storm and just stand in the middle of the pouring rain, lapping up every single drop on the penultimate track, Breaks. Now, whilst anyone can create wordy, descriptive and rambling spoken word poems, the instrumentation has to be able to complement the work nicely, and this album doesn't put a foot wrong for the majority. Picture a Vacuum starts off gentle before introducing an industrial mechanical style warble towards the back end of the track. Ketamine for Breakfast has a great synth and bass bounce going on that complements the vocal performance terrifically. Europe is Lost has this hollow, tinny beat accompanied by a guitar piece where it sounds like the musician loosened up every single string and delivers this metallic noise that brings back the industrial vibe. Those same strings are tightened up to deliver a continuous riff on Don't Fall In and is backed by a warped synth line. The synths dominate Pictures on a Screen and matches the melancholic tone of the lyrics and the delivery, which also complements the sounds created, and the upbeat danceful nature of Grubby I find to be highly attractive, and again, Kate's delivery on this track is pretty superb. However, I will admit there are are some moments that I think could have been either much tighter or more focused. Whilst Perfect Coffee is one of the better songs in the album, I would have liked those explosive synth noises at the start to have been present a lot more than what they were here. The synth horns on We Die do have an air of monotony that after a little while can become somewhat tedious, and Whoops is probably the best example for instrumentation that lacks focus. It's very scattershot and sounds like it was hacked to death during the mixing process because no one knew what to use in order to fill the space. So, would I say that this is better than Everybody Down? Well, it's a close call, but I think on the whole, Everybody Down just edges it, since for me, it does have a more tighter and focused sound that I think Let Them Eat Chaos can occasionally lose at points. But when all is said and done, Tempest has delivered yet another great album. It's a simple concept that taps into the inherent and burdening loneliness and fragility that humanity feels regardless of the extent of such, and handles it competently and in a way that doesn't feel synthetic. Once again, Tempest shows her lyrical prowess, her ability to create great stories, and delivers each one of them with the same passion, energy, and her flow is on point with every track. A great album and one of this year's highlights without a shadow of a doubt.